Good morning and welcome to lesson 2 for Year 9 Maths. This lesson is on simple interest. Now this PowerPoint here is a bit different to the one that you have on your eLearn because I've removed some of the independent work from this so that you can do them by yourselves. Feel free to pause the video at any point if you need to complete an activity or you want to work at your own pace. You can also rewind and re-listen to things. That's the beauty of this format. Alright, so we're going to start off with an example where you want to buy a car for $15,000. Alright, so if you only have $4,000, you might want to take out a loan to get the extra $11,000. Now, when you take out a loan, you have to pay back interest. And interest is an amount of money that incurs every year on that amount that you've paid so that the bank gets a little bit of extra money back in return. So you're going to end up having to pay back more than $11,000 if you take out a loan. So let's look at how that works. So we have our rule for simple interest. So there's two forms that this rule can take. We can either have I equals PRT over 100, or we can use I equals PRT. All right. So that R should be a little r because it is a slightly different number than the one in the original form. So in our first form here, this is our first form. So our I is our simple interest, which is the amount that is either paid or received when you take out a loan or you make an investment. This is the extra money. So this will be a fraction of the amount that you've put in, and that's how much extra you're going to pay in interest. Our P is our principal amount, or the amount that you've either invested or borrowed. All right, so in our example before, this would be our $11,000. Our R here is our rate as a percentage. So that's why we have to divide by 100, because if you remember, a percentage is a number out of 100. All right, so if it's out of 100, then to get it to a decimal, which is what we ideally wanted at for our sum, we're going to divide by 100. So in this form here, this is already going to be as a decimal. But in this first example, we don't have to use a decimal. So if you feel like you're really good at converting your percentages into decimals, this rule is probably a little bit easier for you. If you struggle to turn stuff into decimals, then you might want to use our first rule where we're dividing by 100 in the middle of the sum. And lastly, our T is our term. So that's how long you're going to take out this loan for, or how long you're investing your money for. So this might be 4 years. It might be 7 years. Most car loans are for 7 years. You also might do it for 3/4 of a year. The important thing to remember here is that the number is in years. So if you are told that it's going to be 6 months, then this number needs to be converted into years. So that will be half a year, because 6 months is half of our year. So you would do the number of months divided by 12, because there's 12 months in a year, and that will give you that decimal. Alright, so that's our rule. Make sure you've got that rule written down somewhere, because we're going to be using this quite a bit when we're looking at our simple interest, because it's quite an important rule. Alright, so we're going to have a go at an example where we're going to use the rule. Alright, so I'm going to show both ways of using this rule, both the one that we've got here, as well as our I equals PRT rule. That way we can kind of see how it works in both forms. Alright, so Georgia invests $1,000, so that is going to be our principal amount, is our $1,000, to a term deposit of 24 months. Remember, this has got to be converted into years, so 24 months equals 2 years. Alright, so a 24-month loan will cover 2 years. Alright, and then our interest is going to be 5%. So using this rule, we can leave it as a 5. Alright, so we've got that restated here. Our principal is 1,000, our rate is 5%, and our term is 2 years. So what we're going to do is we're going to put those into our rule to work out what our interest is going to be. So our interest is going to be PRT PRT over 100. Always restate the rule just to clarify what you're doing. Okay, and then we're going to do our $1,000 times by our rate of 5% times by our time of 2 years. And we've got to remember, because we're using this as a whole number, we're going to divide by 100. So that is going to give us 1,000 times by 5 times by 2 divided by 100, and that's going to give us $100. So that is our interest. That's how much extra money that you're going to pay on this loan or on this investment, because she's putting money in. So that means that in the end, after 2 years, she's going to have $1,100. All right, if I use my other rule where I want to use a decimal here instead of a percentage, then we're going to go I equals our $1,000 times by 0.05, because 5 divided by 100 is going to be 0.05. All right, 0.5 is actually 50%. All right, and then we're going to times that by 2. So if we do 1,000 by 0.05 by 2, we also get 100, which is what we want. We want them to be the same number, because that means that we've done both of them correctly. Because it would be really strange if you did both incorrectly and they weren't the same number. All right, so that is how this works, how we find our information in our question and how we input those into our rules. All right, and I've got both ways of doing that there. Once again, both ways are correct. You can choose to do whichever way you feel is better for you, whether you are able to convert into decimals really easily or whether you want to have the divide by 100 in your rule. All right, so here we have another example. So here Jess borrows $14,000 over 6 years at 7.8%. So our numbers are a little bit different. So once again, I'm going to go through both ways of working out our simple interest. So we're going to write down our rule. I'm going to start with the I equals PRT over 100 rule first. So in this rule, our principal is going to be 14,000. We're going to times that by 7.8 and then times that by 6. So because our rate is 7.8% and our time is 6. All right, and then we've got to remember to divide that by 100. So when you're putting that into a calculator, you may need to put brackets around the top, because otherwise you'll just be dividing that 100 by the last number and not by the entire top half of your sum. All right, you can also work out the answer to the top half of your sum and divide the answer by 100. But if you just type it in 14,000 by 7.8 by 6 divided by 100, it's only going to divide that 6 by 100, and so you're not going to get an accurate answer. All right, so we're going to chuck this in our calculator. So we've got 14,000 by 7.8 by 6, and we're going to divide that by 100. So we've got 6,552. All right, so that's our interest. If we do it the other way, we're going to have, let's scroll up and do it over here. I equals PRT, where our rate is now a decimal. So our principal is going to stay the same at 14,000. All right, we're going to times that by our decimal. So 7.8 needs to be divided by 100. So 7.8 divided by 100 is going to give us 0.078. So that's what we're going to chuck here. Oh, I've run out of room. Let me just move that over so that we have a little bit more room. 0.78. And then we're going to times by our time of 6. All right, so if we do 14,000 times by 0.078 times by 6, we're going to get $6,552. It's the same as what we got over here, which means that we've done it right both times. All right, once again, you can do whichever form of that rule is best suited to you. All right, and we're going to do one last example here. All right, so here we've got a $4,000 investment at 4.75% over 4 years. So we can do it, once again, two different ways. So we're going to start off with our PRT over 100. So our principal here is 4,000. We're going to times that by our rate of 4.75 and by 4 years. And we're going to divide that by our 100. So if we chuck that in our calculator, we've got 4,000 by 4.75 by 4. And we're going to divide that answer by 100, which is $760. All right, if we want to do it the other way, we're going to go PRT. We've got $4,000, and we're going to times that by 0.0475 times by 4. So it's going to give us 4,000 by 0.0475 by 4, which is $760. All right, so that's how we do these types of questions, how we work out our simple interest. All right, it's not too difficult. It's a lot of remembering our rule, finding the information in our question, and then putting it into our equation. All right, and making sure that our rate is in the correct form for the rule that we're using. Okay, so next we have a write that essay activity. I'm going to leave that to you to have a go at. I'm not going to go through that here. You're basically just writing a paragraph. All right, so once you've done that, we're going to work through our booklet. So you'll find that on your eLearn page as well. So we're going to work through page 4 in our booklet. So these are the kinds of questions that you'll find on this page to make sure you're on the right page. So it's looking at our simple interest, and we're going through and we're practicing. All right, if you need any help with this, feel free to contact your teacher, or you can contact myself, Miss Burke, through discussion board or through email. All right, and your teacher will be available to you during the lesson that we would usually have you during the week. All right, outside of that time, you may not be able to catch that teacher because they may be dealing with another class at that time. All right, so be a little bit patient, but during the lesson times, your teacher should be able to get back to you relatively quickly. All right, and have a go at this question as a bit of an extension question. All right, so it's worded, so you have to find the information in the question by reading. All right, have a wonderful day, and if you need any help, let the teachers know.